Breaking right now at 5, President Biden drops out of the 2024 race for president and endorses Vice President Kamala Harris. Local lawmakers react to the stunning announcement after weeks of growing pressure for Biden to end his campaign. So the question now is, what's next for the Democratic ticket? We have team coverage for you of what this announcement means with less than a month until the Democratic National Convention here in Chicago. The news at 5 starts right now. All right, thanks for joining us here on your Sunday afternoon. I'm Evrod Cassimy. We, of course, begin with this breaking news. President Biden has announced he is ending his campaign for president and is endorsing Vice President Kamala Harris to be the Democratic presidential nominee. This, of course, comes after weeks of growing pressure for him to withdraw from the Democratic ticket. Biden made the announcement about the decision in a letter on social media. And in it, he says, "It has been the greatest honor of my life to serve as your president. And while it has been my intention to seek re-election, I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down and to focus solely on fulfilling my duties as president for the remainder of my term." He goes on to say that he's going to speak to the nation later this week in more detail about his decision. And then, in a separate post, he offered his full support and endorsement for Kamala Harris to be the nominee of the Democratic Party. Harris released a statement saying, "I am honored to have the president's endorsement, and my intention is to earn and win this nomination." And in the last hour, the Federal Election Commission form changed from Biden for president to Harris for president. We, of course, have team coverage for you of Biden's historic announcement and the reaction. And the big question is what happens next. So let's start things off with NBC5 political reporter Marianne Ahern, who joins us now in studio. And Marianne, a lot of eyes are on Chicago now.
Absolutely, Evrod. This historic announcement just 1 month before the Democratic delegates begin arriving in Chicago. While many might have been anticipating this might happen, at the same time, think of this. An Illinois delegate to the convention was called just before noon today, asking if that delegate still supported Biden. 1 hour later, Biden posted his decision on social media. It is going to have a big impact on the convention and perhaps even Illinois politics. Just days after Republicans wrap up their convention in what was seen as organized and on message for the most part, Joe Biden withdrawing from the race puts the power into those coming to Chicago for the Democratic National Convention. Congressman Mike Quigley is already endorsing Vice President Kamala Harris and is hoping others will too.
Her name has to be submitted for nomination. And I think it's around 300 signatures that have to be presented. It's hard to imagine anyone else could pull that off or would be willing to try, given what I think will be a consensus working very quickly in her favor.
Governor J.B. Pritzker, often mentioned as a possible candidate for president or even vice president, released a statement focusing on Donald Trump, saying, quote, "I will work every day to ensure that he," meaning Trump, "does not win in November." Pritzker did not endorse Harris so far. Neither did former President Barack Obama, who says in part, "We will be navigating uncharted waters in the days ahead, but I have extraordinary confidence that the leaders of our party will be able to create a process from which an outstanding nominee emerges."
We don't have a lot of time to waste, and the idea is we need to defeat Donald Trump.
A Democratic strategist with knowledge believes there are 3 governors being vetted as possible vice presidential nominees: Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, Kentucky Governor Andrew Beshear, and Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro. That strategist believes Pritzker is a long shot.
I think it's a deep bench. I'm going to leave that up to candidate Vice President Harris. It's a deep bench starting right here in Illinois.
One other name mentioned as a possible vice presidential nominee is Arizona Senator Mark Kelly, and there is urgency for the VP choice to be made. The Democrats are hoping to have a virtual vote early to avoid chaos here in Chicago. One last note, if some chance that Governor Pritzker is on this ticket, He would then be replaced, should they win then in November, he would be replaced by Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton to fill the rest of his term. There would be no special election in Illinois. We're getting way ahead of ourselves on that.
Yes.
But interesting, lots of talk. It has just been an historic day, and we're going to be following it all the way through.
We certainly will, Marianne. Thank you so much. We should also point out, in a brief interview with NBC News, former President Donald Trump said that Joe Biden is the worst president in the history of the U.S. He also posted on Truth Social, adding in part, Biden was not fit to run for president and is certainly not fit to serve and never was. He only attained the position of president by lies, fake news, and not leaving his basement. And it is not just Donald Trump. Many lawmakers and voters are weighing in on Biden's decision to exit the race. I want to get now to NBC5's V. Nguyen, who joins us with more on this mixed reaction that we're seeing, V.
Yes, Rob, we're hearing mixed reactions from voters, and now with it being 4 months away from the election, they're not sure how things are going to shake out for the Democratic Party. Now, for the past 2 weeks, a handful of Democrats have called for the president to pass the torch. Some voters downtown this afternoon telling us they're surprised by the decision. Others not so much, given the president's debate performance. Now, with Biden endorsing Kamala Harris to be the next commander-in-chief, voters say the big question, can she resonate with undecided voters, and does she have what it takes to face former President Donald Trump on the big stage?
We've faced this in the past, right, with Hillary and she trying a shot at being the president. And I mean, I think it's time that America also has a female president leading this nation.
I think it's the most logical decision and is the one I would have predicted, but you gotta wonder, right? You gotta wonder a little bit, like, if she is up for the job, and you got to wonder if the public is ready for her to take over.
I love her. I'm just not sure the world is ready for her. But I would support her 120%, absolutely.
The Democratic Party of Illinois Chair Lisa Hernandez issued a statement thanking President Biden for his service and time in the White House, saying in part, "We face a critical moment in our democracy. The stakes could not be higher, and we must stand firm against the threats posed by a potential Trump-Vance presidency. Donald Trump and J.D. Vance represents a return to policies that favor the wealthy, threaten our health care, and undermine our democratic institutions." Meanwhile, Illinois Republican Party Chair responding to Biden dropping out, saying in part, "Today's announcement is the culmination of years of lies from the Biden White House and Democrats shaming anyone who questioned the fitness of President Biden. Democrats are divided, torn apart by their own duplicity, trying to pass off President Biden's inability to fulfill his role, while Republicans stand united behind President Trump and an agenda of freedom, prosperity, and safety." Now, reactions are still pouring in from both sides. We know right now that Congressman Brad Schneider and Sean Casten both supporting and endorsing Kamala Harris for president. Reporting live in the control center, V. Nguyen, NBC5 News.
V, thank you. Meanwhile, President Biden's announcement comes as he continues to battle COVID. In an update from the president's doctor, he just had his 8th dose of Paxlovid this morning, and his symptoms have significantly improved. The president will continue to take the drug as planned and continues to perform all of his presidential duties. He is still isolating at his home in Delaware. So the Democrats arrive here in Chicago in just 29 days for the Democratic National Convention. But at this point, it's now very unclear what that's even going to look like. Let's turn things over to NBC5's Randy Gyllenhaal, who joins us now live at the United Center with more on how this shakeup is going to affect planning. Randy?
Evrod, the hotels remain booked, but a lot else could change, including things like the campaign signs. They'll no longer say Biden-Harris 2024. Even the speaker schedule could be torn up. Uncertainty ahead for Democrats with the clock ticking. Inside the United Center, DNC preparations have been underway for months, but now it won't be President Joe Biden accepting the nomination. One thing that will not change is security. Extremely tight, especially in light of last week's shooting that injured former President Trump, as Democrats scramble to find a nominee.
There's going to be questions of who's reporting to who inside the party, inside the campaign. Yeah, it's going to be chaos, I'd imagine.
Northwestern history professor Kevin Boyle studies Chicago's often exciting conventions. He says if Kamala Harris can get political support soon, it will make things easier for the Democrats.
One pathway is that she'll consolidate support and the convention will be relatively straightforward, at least inside the convention hall. The other possibility is they have an open process, in which case, who knows all bets are off when that happens.
Security officials have also been preparing for mass protests at the DNC. With Biden now stepping down, it could change protesters' tactics.
I think if Kamala Harris is the nominee, then the protests will be largely aimed at the administration, right? That she was a member of the administration.
Those pro-Palestinian groups have been planning to protest as close to the United Center as possible. Today, the Arab American Anti-Discrimination Committee sent a statement saying that they welcome President Biden stepping down, long criticizing his position on Gaza, adding they hope it paves the way for a Democratic nominee who supports a, quote, unconditional ceasefire, and no mention in that statement of Vice President Kamala Harris. For now, we're live outside the United Center. Randy Gyllenhaal, NBC 5 News.
All right, Randy, thank you so much. We, of course, are going to stay on top of Biden's historic decision to drop out of the presidential race. Coverage continues right after this newscast with a special edition of NBC Nightly News. That's going to start at 5:30. And of course, you can always find the latest developments on our website, NBCChicago.com, and our NBC 5 News app.